77 ABC. Now, Lionel is on your radio.
All righty, Lionel with you. Happy Mother's Day, everybody. We're going to talk. Oh, this is such a day. Mother's Day, Mother's Day, Mother's Day, Mother's Day. Call your mother today. Talk to your mother today. If your mother is no longer with you, do what I do. Remember great moments. Unfortunately, there are some cases, I think the rarity, where people did not have a mother that was helpful. Look at David Chase. I was listening to an interview of him on the way over here, and his relationship with his mother was the inspiration for Tony's relationship. That is such an interesting show, The Sopranos. We will get to that and why that matters. We're also going to be talking about transgender as cosplay. Not Cosby, cosplay. Also, dark woke. This is going to blow your mind. When you say Jasmine Crockett, what's that all about? Dark woke. Also, the Soviet versus American participation in World War II and how we live in this world of complete and total this fantasy where we think that World War II is about saving Private Ryan. But I want to talk about something before we move on, because I hope that our good friend Dr. Sky is listening, because I've never met the gentleman, but he intros me by virtue of his show is before mine. Ours. It's a thing of ours. This thing of ours is Cosa Nostra that we are doing right here. And he was talking about the speed of light and trying to quantify numbers. And there's a wonderful book by John Allen Paulos. Please review this. It's called Innumeracy. It is one of the most wonderful books, changed my life in terms of numbers. Not math or maths, as they say in the UK, but math. And Dr. Sky was giving you a rendition of how fast the speed of light is. And, of course, you never can go past the speed of light or go faster, and that's another story. But it's 186,000 miles per second, and what does that mean, and how fast is that? And it's just incredible. And when you think of the notion of the universe, the numbers are enormous. And this is regular Newtonian, Einsteinium kind of big object, outer space, versus quantum mechanics, tiny, particle matters. Well, there is I am a frustrated, not frustrated, but I loved chemistry, and organic chemistry in particular. And those of us remember the mole, Avogadro's number, or as my friend called it, avocado's number. And Avogadro's number is 6.022. Don't forget, 0 is a number, O is a letter. Sister Mary Agony drilled that into me. 6.022 times 10 to the 23rd. And it is the amount of, it's hard to say, it is in essence, the quantity of a mole. M-O-L-E. There's molarity, molality, and I'm getting too deep into this. But a mole is like a dozen, like stone. He weighs 12 stone. What is that, 14? A score. What's that, 20? 4 score, and a score is 20. It's a unit. A dozen, a gross. Well, a Avogadro's number denotes a mole. And what's interesting is that it tells you, for example, if you want to see a unit, you look at the atomic number. Hydrogen is 1, carbon is 12, oxygen 16, etc., etc. One gram of hydrogen gives you 6 with 23 zero atoms. It takes 12 grams, this would be carbon 12, to come up with the same number. It takes 16 grams to come up with 6 with 23 atoms. So that's the connection between atomic number and that. Okay, forget that. Let me tell you what 6 with 23 zeros after that means. This blows my mind because I love big numbers. And But this is big in reverse, because microscopic, like Mandelbrot's fractals, which is kind of sort of microscopic, but it's just as big, but in the opposite direction. Remember, things aren't tiny, they're just far away. Okay? If I were to take, I'm trying to think about this from memory. If I were to show you the atom, which is not even the smallest delimitation of units of nature. But if I were to show you how big the atom is in perspective, if I were to take the nucleus of an atom, your plain old atom, to show you, let's say it was the size of a basketball, to show you where the electron would be, or not the electron, but electron's kind of like the using Schrodinger and all this appreciation for this anticipated approximate floating area where electrons were, it'd be like a mile away. This is an atom. You understand what I'm saying? If I were to show you representative of, if the nucleus was the size of a basketball, the electrons would be a mile away. How big is this thing? But it's tiny. No, it's not. It's far away. What? Okay. Let me go back to this. How big is this number? 6.022. 6 with 23 zeros after it. This is Avogadro's number. Okay? This is how many particles per mole. So 1 mole of anything gives you 602 200 000 000 000 000 000 000. What does that even mean? Okay, let's put this into perspective, all right? This is for Dr. Scott. You got a kick out of this. Grains of sand. Bill, how many grains of sand are there on the planet? On the world's beaches? Would you get back with me on that, okay? Believe me, he'll figure it out. It is estimated, huh? There is an estimation of 7.5 times 10 to the 18. Now, how they do this, I have no idea. Avogadro's number is 80,000 times greater than all the grains of sand on the earth. And if each grain of sand were an atom, you would need 80,000 Earths to reach a mole. Okay? We're getting it. We're not done yet. Bill, how many stars are there in the universe? Quick! Answer the question. 10 to the 24. So 10 with 24 zeros. A mole of hydrogen atoms is about equal to the number of stars in the universe. Think about this one. And how big is this? 1 mole of water molecules, you're looking at more molecules than stars in existence. How about pennies covering the earth? Listen to this. Pennies from heaven. If you had 1 mole of pennies, 6 with 23 zeros, you could cover the Earth's surface in pennies 350 million times. Each person on Earth would get $75 trillion. And it would still just be 1 mole of pennies. 6 with 23 zeros. How about stacking paper? Each sheet of paper is about 0.1 millimeters thick. A mole, 6 with 23 zeros. A mole of paper would stretch to the moon and back over 80 billion times. How about time? If you counted 1 number every second, nonstop, it would take you 19 million trillion years to count to Avogadro's number. And the universe is only 13.8 billion years old. So do you understand this? This is one of the things. And why is this important, you ask? You're probably wondering, what the hell is this guy talking about? What I want people to understand is this thing called awe. Not awe, but I mean awe. When people say awesome, no, it's not. Awe, when your mouth drops, when you're gobsmacked, when it's breathtakingly enormous. awe, wonder, reverence, fear, respect, vast, overwhelming, profoundly. It's respect with fear, staring up at the Milky Way, looking at the edge of the Grand Canyon. It's this to me perceived vastness, this inability where you say, I can't get my hands around this. Whether it's God, love. I want people, and one of the things that Joe Rogan does better than anybody, because, and I look at Dr. Sky, who was, I think, a latter day, what am I trying to say? But he's maybe a continuation, iteration, a version of the great Art Bell, who everybody loves. Because in radio, and that the two folks who who just changed my life were Art Bell, because it made me think of things I never thought about, and Alex Jones. I know nobody wants to say that, but I'll say it proudly. He rewrote everything. He's like the Frank Zappa of radio. But going back to this, I want kids to say, wow. And Joe Rogan does that. Wow. How did they make the pyramids? Wow. How did they move these? Wow. That's what I want. And kids aren't taught, wow. Holy God. And today, if you think about this, is Mother's Day. Everybody always talks about death. Death. Where do we go? By the way, the Max Planck Institute talks about life being forever sustained by virtue of life after death using quantum mechanics theory. Believe it or not, a bunch of atheists. There's a lot to be said for that. But nobody ever talks about before. Where did you come from? That to me is the awe part, not the death. Death is easy. I got it. I understand it. I think I do. It doesn't mean, but they asked Stephen Hawking, what happened before the Big Bang? And he said, what happened? What's south of the South Pole? I don't know. Your mother, I can show you 2 pieces of viscous, I'm not going to get into specifics, viscous molecular organic material, okay? 2 of them. And you look at it, what is this? Don't scrape that off. That is the component of life. Mom and Dad, look at this and look at this. Look at it. Look at it. We used to have this thing when I was my Sicilian grandmother and her sisters. They would always talk about, I shouldn't say this. Maybe it's a terrible word. I don't know. But any kind of bodily humor, like I guess a version of schmutz or something, was like milidi. It's like this. What is that? I don't know. You want to wipe that off? Well, that's what this is. You take 2 seemingly inert kind of chemicals, some substances, put them together in the most perfect of circumstances. And God says, all right, I'll take over from here. And then you have meiosis. Remember mitosis? Remember the acronym IPMAT, interphase, prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase. This is meiosis, cellular division, and bow, we're off to the races. And that's got to go somewhere. And where does it go? Mom. Dad says, my mother had a joke. You would have loved her. She says, when's Mother's Day? 9 months after Father's Day. That was it. She loved it. And I remember as a kid saying, what does that mean? Because I knew about conception and birth since the beginning of time. I'll tell you that story. Thanks to my mother. Because she never, ever, ever questioned sex questions. We're always like, that's a good question. That's a good question. There was ever like, don't ask that. You're too young to know. Never. Even my father, who was just would answer really deep questions. Like one time we were in we went to Washington. We went to the FBI, and they said I never forget. We're in this room. The FBI is responsible for interstate this kidnapping, rape, somehow rape. I said, "What's rape?" Real loud. And my father said, "That's when a man forces himself on a woman." I said, "What the hell does that mean?" But he didn't tell me. And I turned to my mother. She says, I said, "Oh, that. Why didn't you say so?" He was more statutorily confined. But they never ever said, "Don't ask that question." That's a dirty. No, it's like, that's a good question. Knowledge is always good. Good for you. But anyway, but there is this thing is in your mother. And this thing starts to grow. And something happens to the mother because you are now connected. And you want to talk about like a theremin. I do the Robert Klein thing. It is the wildest. You are, it's like almost like having not a twin, but have you ever seen a mother? I've seen this so many times. Relatives, family members. You get some 16-year-old, 15. Ew, that's gross. And you think, what is this? Who is that? That's your cousin. That's your niece. That's your sister. Ew. Her whole world is ooh. Everything is gross. Everything, ew. This self-centered, egomaniacal, narcissistic, because when sometimes girls grow up, because remember, women are crazy, men are stupid. And she's getting into this weird, like, psychotic. It's like, what's the matter with her? Ew. And of course, they go through these changes, and their puberty is like, wow, breasts and periods. What do? I remember somebody said, girls have periods and boys have nocturnal emissions. I'm thinking, that's it? That's it? You know, that's it? You got a pair of shorts you can hammer a nail with? That's our hell? But I digress. But what happens to this girl? This self-centered, solipsistic, narcissistic, self-referential, just annoying. She turns into a mom. And all of a sudden, Miss Ew turns into, come here! Why, the little baby hasn't pooped. Let me check that diaper. Open it up. What's the matter? And they're holding up, do you ever how mothers hold up diapers and they can weigh them? You know, what is this? Hey, that's a good outload. Yeah, it's good. Come here. And they wipe stuff off you and you're walking around and they don't say, ew. They go, no. All of a sudden they say, who's this? It's Super Mom. And they get not only maturity, but they get into this thing where they will kill you. Men, you think you're tough? Women are ferocious. And a ferocious woman, as a mom, there is nothing on the planet in terms of the absolute value, the magnitude of ferocity like a mother. I'm going to talk more about this on Mother's Day. They are, stop and think about what they are. I know you're going to get, here's your flowers. I love you. Here's a car. Stop and think what just like with Avogadro's number, think what a mother is. There will be nothing on this planet without a mother, anything worthwhile. There will be, pick your favorite animal, no animal without a mother. Forget this transgender nonsense. It's a mother with a uterus and fallopian tubes and menses. And that's right. And they are tough. They're tougher than us. They're more brutal than us. And they are responsible for everything. There is nothing in the world. You like a song? Name a famous person. Nothing without a mother. Nothing. We'd be walking around like plankton. We'd still be in the organic broth without a mother. They're it. Remember that. Sometimes I know they act crazy. I know that. But you gotta be crazy to be a mother. Number one, because of nature, but also we make them crazy. And we need them to be crazy. Because we basically have to tell a human being, a person, I want you to all of a sudden devote yourself to this little salamander, this weird thing that pops out of you. Where dad, he's walking around on the, you know what I mean? Let's face it, dads are great. They're wonderful. But they're always like disciplined. But mothers are important. And that's what we celebrate today. Our number is 800-848-9222. I'm going to talk about more about mothers and why mothers are critical and why it is. It's not about just Happy Mother's Day. No, I want to think about it. Go dark and deep and go deep. I think I said this before, into the celebration of what a mother means. Lionel with you on 77 WABC.
Overnight with Lionel.
WABC 77.
All righty, Lionel with you. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers, all you mothers, happy Mother's Day. I talk about something, and I've had this my whole life. You see, let me back up a little bit. I've often had more of a respect for women than men, and that's why sometimes I'm so disappointed in them. because they are the superior of the genders. That's right, there's two genders. Enough of this crap. There's two genders, all right? You could say, well, here's blue and here's yellow, and that's green, but it's still blue and yellow. Anyway, I don't want to get into that. But I sometimes get a little upset with them. But I speak of them almost, to me, everything is evolutionarily connected. I talk about the ferocity of women. Women are scary. Women are scary. Women, I don't know if women ran the world if we'd have as much war, but women never forget. There is no such thing. And we can go into this whole notion about why, maybe if there's an evolutionary point of view, women and moms sometimes, women have fewer friends than men do, or what we call friends. And I think that's good. Why? Because nature, or God, says, you're going to raise kids, and I don't want you being ultra social. Because if you're out there saying, you know what, you take care of the kids, I'm going to go out and party. No. That's what the men do. But let's talk about this notion of the ferocity. After a woman becomes a mother, this is my hypothesis, if you will. There's biological, psychological, spiritual reasons. Let's talk about the real stuff. When a woman gives birth, as you know this, her body is flooded with oxytocin. Men don't have this. Well, maybe, but not like women. Women are a hormonal symphony. We have testosterone. Hey, I got low T. Okay. Anything else? Nope. Well, there's neurotransmitters, but that's it. Not women. Oxytocin, the bonding hormone. But also, there's, along with prolactin, there's neurochemicals that enhance, listen to me, vigilance, aggression. This is kicking off, and protective instincts like you've never seen. In neuroscience, this is called maternal aggression. It's an evolutionary trait. It's a shift. And it's designed to keep offspring alive, even if it means fighting to the death. And this is what you have to understand. In animals, this is obvious. A mother lion will shred a threat to her cubs. Humans aren't different, just a little more subtle. Now, psychologically, this is important. Before motherhood, a woman may worry about herself, which is good, I keep throwing in. It's not narcissism. It's not solipsism. It's a little different. Now, after she becomes something, listen to me, bigger, she's different. The shift gives her clarity, gives her a sense of boldness, and zero tolerance for nonsense. I'm telling you. Have you ever heard this thing called mom rage? You ever heard about this? It's because her brain is adjusting to a new set of stakes. Everything matters more because the survival and the well-being of you depends on her shifting and becoming ferocious. Now, socially, think about this. A mother is often told to be nurturing, selfless, quiet, but modern mothers also bear this societal brunt of judgment and pressure and isolation. And that ferocity that I'm talking about, it's not instinct, it's called earned power. The fire that comes from managing pain, chaos, and care. Oh, and pain. I like when men say, I had a kidney stone. Okay. And they compare it to childbirth. Okay. I'm not even going to get there. We'll talk about pain one day, and we've got future shows coming about pain, smells, things which will never change your mind. And spirituality. Let me just tell you something. In a lot of cultures, the mother is seen as sacred and terrifying, capable of creation, protection, and destruction. Because with a mother, her intuition sharpens. This is not just me being anecdotal. This is evolutionary. This is chemical. This is biological, psychological, spiritual. There's a reason for this. And we've got a lot of evolution that brought us here. So the ferocity isn't new. It's ancient. It's what happens when love stops being a feeling and becomes a force of nature. To even call a mother's love, I don't even know if it's beyond that. So you're not just seeing some mom. You're seeing a woman who understands what she died for. You're talking about a woman who who can pick your cry out from babies crying, who knows exactly what you're thinking, who looks at you. And one of the reasons, listen to me, that women are sometimes more communicative, I think communicate earlier and are more expressive, sometimes to the chagrin of many rather laconic and quiescent men, is because they've got to be more attuned to feelings. They're looking at a baby who ain't talking, and they're looking at it, and they're saying, something's wrong. I don't know, something's wrong with this. I don't think this baby can hear. And your mother can figure out something's wrong because they say that there's a period of time where a mother checks that baby out, watches. I know exactly what's going on. Bonding, breastfeeding, it's a connection the likes of which you've never, ever, ever thought. My mother was terrific. My mother, I think, probably had more. Either I shared her sensibilities. She never taught me it. But one of the things she always said to me, any question you have is valid. And when I was a kid, when it came to matters of sex, she always said, oh, okay, I'll never forget this. She and I talked about this all the time. She was, you know how kids sometimes come out of nowhere? She was painting a room. We had this room. She's painting it. She was always into, my father, bless his heart, never fixed anything. She did it. So anyway, she says, she's painting, and I came in and I asked the question of where did I come from? Where did babies come from? Whatever I asked. She says, okay. She got down off the collider. She had a ladies' home journal or a McCall's. Did your mother ever have one of those? Ladies' home journal? That was like a mom's when we were kids. It was like a mom's, that was her Playboy or Life or whatever it was. She took a pen. She goes, okay, here we go. This is the sperm. So this is sperm. This is flagellum. She didn't give that name. This is the ovum, and they meet, and they unite, and blah, blah, blah. Okay. And how does it get in there, Mom? Oh, simple. The penis. And it goes inside. And I knew words like vagina and everything. I knew this from the beginning. And she never, all it's called, there was nothing, that to her was like, there was nothing wrong with it. This is nature, whatever it was. Okay. I got it. And I thought that's what people did. I thought that when you had babies, it was a kind of a calculated thing. So anyway, I was watching some show. I don't know if it wasn't, I always say it's Bewitched, but it was before that. And there was a scene where the mother tells her husband, honey, yeah, we're going to have a baby. What? We are? And as a kid, I'm saying, why is this guy so amazed by this? Does he not remember having sex? See, I thought you had sex and you waited. That's what I thought. Because the way she never explained to me, obviously the human part of it, she never explained that to me. You have sex and you wait and then you have the baby. So the husband would come home every day and say, is it time yet? No, okay. Because you're waiting for it. I never knew. So anyway, I went to my mother. I said, does he not remember having sex? And my mother says, no, people don't have sex to have babies. Sometimes they have sex to have pleasure. What? This is pleasurable? She goes, yeah, why? Who would want to do it if it wasn't pleasurable? I said, well, to procreate. I wasn't speaking like that, but I thought, well, isn't it to produce children? No, not necessarily. And the whole notion of, not seduction, but, ecstasy. And I remember one time being told, when you have that itch on your back and you go to like a doorpost and you scratch your back and that's you're getting it. It's, okay. But what was important was not the explanation. It was the way she never, ever held it against me. There was no stigma to it. There was no, don't ask that question. You're just a kid. Never did that. Always let me sit in on adult conversations. I just listened. Never told me I was a kid. Never told me. Just appreciated whatever you want to ask. Go ahead. Ask away. vocabulary, words, weird music. This is what I do, Tone, today. I think about that. And of course, I always think I should have been, because believe me, most parents should say, or most kids should say, I was a terrible kid. I should have told her I love her more. I should have done. We always were very good about that. My family, love you, love you, love you. That was never a problem. But then there's also sometimes, unfortunately, people who never had a relationship with their mother. And there's also something, too, which has got to be tough. People who wanted to be mothers who couldn't. And that's got to be something, or days like this where you've got to think about this. And I'm not saying that adoption doesn't count, because adoption I'm sorry. It is just as great and as powerful and as important. And one could argue even more so. But that's what Mother's Day is to an extent. It's there. I want to talk about that. And also, think about women today. I know nobody wants to talk about this, but I always think about this. Think about women who wanted to have children but couldn't. Or just didn't. Or who wasn't in the cards. Or things didn't happen. Or whatever. Because it's weird when you think about this. As I've said, there was this office. We used to be in an office. And there was like 3 floors of this fertility clinic kind of a thing. It's like, my God, there's so many people who can't have children. And you walk out the door, and there's 8 million people in New York. You go to Mexico City, it's like it's unfair. It's like you want to ask God, how come this person can't have a child? But sometimes the most emotionally and intellectually ill-equipped are the most fertile. They enjoy here's a good one for you, a fecundity. They are fecund over people who aren't. Is that fair? And God says, fair has nothing to do with it. It's called entropy. All right, my friends, 800-848-9222. We'll go to your calls. We have a lot to talk about this morning. Transgender cosplay, dark woke, and Soviet Union versus American involvement in World War II. How about that? Huh? Who are you listening to? That's a good question. This is Lionel on 77 WABC.
Talk Radio 77 WABC.
Overnight with Lionel.
WABC 77.
Say something, Mr. Lee, who was, as Dr. Sky says, was he stewarding the helm, or how he comes up with these are incredible. Absolutely cosmically connected. Last night, yesterday morning, Tony and I thought of a song, a Kool and the Gang song, which I wanted to use as bumper, and I'm thinking, how did this happen? Sometimes when things occur that are hard to explain, we always attribute them to various stuff. We always say, it must be a reason for that. No, sometimes there's no reason. In any event, happy Mother's Day, all you mothers out there. This is Lionel with you. Until 5 a.m. Again, William, excellent. David in Pennsylvania, you're on the Lionel Show on 77 WABC.
Hi, Lionel. You're a real nice guy. You seem like a very well-rounded individual.
Are you on a speaker?
Yeah.
Why? What is this, a conference call? What is this?
Well, let me try to get to this phone here.
Yeah.
But I can't change it right now. I gotta.
Do you normally use a speaker when you talk to people?
I was trying to listen to your show. I was intensely.
You were trying to listen?
I'll get to the point.
Wait a minute. You were trying to listen? Did you or did you not listen? And why is it so difficult for you? Why were you trying?
I've always had good experiences with people named Lionel.
Okay. All righty.
Okay. Now, men should not be in women's locker rooms. I agree with you there.
I never said that once. I never brought that up one time today. Why would you think that that's true?
Transgender garbage.
We're talking about Mother's Day. David, do you have any? David, let me ask you a very, very serious question. And I don't want you to take this the wrong way. Do you have any idea what you're talking about? I mean, any idea?
I do.
Okay.
There are 1,700 beneficial insects out there.
Okay.
And there are, to every one detrimental insect, and there are pesticides spread all over the place.
There are 17,000 beneficial. How many non-beneficial or problematic insects are there, do you think?
1,700 beneficial to one non-beneficial.
David, do you think it is? Do you think that you are being rather a speciesist to say that a bug, God's creation, is not beneficial? I mean, give me an idea of a non.
Agree with me.
Give me the idea of a non-beneficial insect.
Be not as far rampant with the government and the chemical companies as they have been since the 1940s at least.
David, somewhere there was somebody getting into their car, perhaps, maybe, I don't know who, somebody who was getting into their car and wondering, what the hell is this guy talking about?
You get busted.
Okay. All righty. Ladies and gentlemen, I have no idea what he's talking about. But listen, that doesn't mean he's a bad person. That doesn't mean he's a bad person. By the way, speakerphones are the most obnoxious thing. Also, walking around on your phone in your hand and you're talking into your phone, making everybody listening to your inane conversation. Detective Nolan, you're on 77 WABC with Lionel.
Lionel, thank you. Let me just compose myself for a second. It sounded like David was standing on a soapbox in the middle of his room talking to you.
But
it was,
prior to the anesthesia kicking in.
Oh, my God. Reason for my call. It's a musical question, but before I get to that, I want to say that what you said about your mother and the way she treated you and raised you, she, in my opinion, she did an excellent job. Because,
I mean, she did. I mean, I had a lot to do. But let me stop for a moment. Detective, you bring up a good point. Parents take too much credit and too much blame. I could have just said, the hell with you, and go on and robbed or been a terrible person. I don't think that would have been her fault. And I don't think necessarily that I could have been a good person without her. Just quickly, there was a documentary I saw one time on RT, and they talked about these kids who were from, I don't know where, either in the Congo or somewhere in Africa. I have no idea. But they were assassins. Actually, assassins at the age of however old you are to hold a rifle. And they were later adopted out, and they said, I don't know if we should be, it's one thing when you got a dog who's been through some pretty tough times. A kid who was an assassin, I don't think is going to blend into second grade. Do you know that when they were shown love and direction, their past did not necessarily contaminate or affect or impede upon any chances of their success? So what I'm saying is there's a certain malleability and elasticity of the human spirit. There are some people who are really good with good parents. There are good with bad parents. There are bad kids with good parents. There's every permutation under the sun. So parents, I think, take too much credit and too much blame for how we are. Proceed, sir.
Yeah. Based on what you said about your mom again, based on the way you speak and the way you treat the callers and the issues you discuss, you are definitely the E.F. Hutton of radio today.
Now 12 people are wondering, who is E.F. Hutton? I know. I got you. People are listening. Indeed, sir.
To my question, regarding the musical question. A while back, you said that you were not a fan of the Beatles, and I'm just intrigued by that because you have a vast experience with music and you like a lot of music, but you said you didn't like the Beatles.
No, I didn't say I didn't like them. I'm not as enamored. I liked Wings better than
right.
I'm just
right. Not. But I think McCartney took Wings and went to much higher heights.
Oh yeah.
My point being, my question is, back when you were a kid and the Beatles were on the Ed Sullivan Show, Shea Stadium, and everything, you remember. I remember in my neighborhood, either you were a Beatle fan, a hardcore one, or you were a Beach Boys fan, and it was a rivalry back then.
Mr. Lee, you are again, sir, I don't even know how to put into words how genius you are. You say something, and before you're done, he's got the song. It's an incredible. Look, I don't want to get into this thing about Beatles are okay. I'm going to tell you something which is the most important. And I'm going to say something which you might consider the most sacrilegious. I know that Frank Sinatra's, there's only one Sinatra. But in my opinion, quantitatively, mathematically, absolutely, historically, the singer who had the most impact, the greatest impact ever, was Bing Crosby. Bing Crosby, for the longest time, on radio, big band, movies, and sheet music. Now, nobody's ever to think about, they think of White Christmas. If you look at it quantitatively, it's Bing Crosby. Christos, ladies and gentlemen, how are you, my friend? Happy Mother's Day.
Yes, sir. Happy Mother's Day, everybody.
Talk to me, sir.
I want to quote Schopenhauer's. What do you think about him? Where
Ooh.
he said women are directly adopted and act as the nurses and educators of our early childhood.
Who was Schopenhauer, you
Simple
mean?
reason.
Schopenhauer?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Arthur.
I
Yeah.
think that I think that makes absolute sense. I also love the way that mothers in different cultures, you being a proud Greek, I'm sure see similarities to your other European, to Italian, and Spanish. There's something about, how do I say this? The more advanced, the more advanced and the more developed, if you will, a civilization is, because remember, the three civilizations on this planet, Rome, China, and Greece. That's it. I mean, that's it. Everything else is like, okay,
cuisine as well, for the cuisine, right?
or the cuisine, right? But what's interesting about that is, look at how the relationship of the mother is, and how, like this gentility, this gentle brutality. Does that make any sense?
Isn't that incredible? Isn't that awesome?
And you don't appreciate it when you're a kid, do you?
No, not really, man. You realize it today when you get older and wiser. And when he said they are themselves childish, frivolous, and short-sighted, and they're just big children. And I love my wife as a mother to my two girls,
mm-hmm.
and it's an incredible accomplishment.
You know what, Christos? You could not have said it better myself or yourself, my friend. I thank you so much, and to your beloved wife, and to all the wives and mothers on this day. And I don't say this gratuitously; I mean it. Happy Mother's Day today. More coming up. We have, oh my God, we've got, wait till you hear our transgender cosplay, dark woke, and that's not a form of chocolate. And also, Soviet versus American World War II stats. You'll love this. This is Lionel with you on 77 WABC. You're from another planet, my friend. You are connected to a frequency that few have or have ever known was present. Mr. Bill Lee, ladies and gentlemen, doing this. I don't know how you do it. You're a veritable suppository of musical information, and I mean that with all due respect. Anthony, you're on 77 WABC. Anthony!
Hi, sir. I don't want to sound like a chauvinist pig or anything, but I have a question.
Oh, by the way, there's nothing better. There's no better way to start off than with that. Go ahead, sir.
Have we not upset the apple cart of family tradition by in our culture? I mean, capitalism has basically, convinced women that they need to have a career other than rearing their family.
Capitalism? Wait a minute. Capitalism? Stop for a second. Explain how capitalism has convinced women to have a career. Explain that one.
Well, I had listened to an interview by Aaron, a gentleman by the name of Aaron. I can't remember his last name.
Well, tell me what you think. Rather than, I didn't ask you to tell me about an interview. Why do you believe that?
Well, he said that.
No. Why do you believe that? Forget what he said, because he's not here. You're here.
Well,
why do you believe that?
Women's lib was brought about.
Stop for a second. Women's lib. Oh, no. See, this is that whole thing about. Also, you got to bring up the Rockefeller Foundation. Tell me what you think.
Yes. Well, that's what he said.
No.
Aaron
Again,
Russo.
Anthony, you're being anecdotal. See, I don't need you here. You can just say, page 35 of this book, and I'm out of here. What do you think?
Well,
intuitively,
I feel that it's the most important job a mom has, is to make sure that her children are raised the way that
now
she
think
wants
what you
them to
just
be
said.
raised.
The most important role a mom has. Well, you've just limited it to a mother, so that makes more sense, right? So isn't that kind of dare I say, tautological. The most important part about being a child is to enjoy being a child. Okay, fine. Have you thought this through? I'm just curious.
Well, I'm trying to make sense where my
I know you are,
flawed.
and you're failing miserably, but that's okay. Doesn't mean you're a bad person. But the thing is, you started off with this kind of a like it's not really stuck together. These pieces of puzzles. What do you feel? Women's lib. You don't think that the liberation of women from some of the constraints of this housewifery wasn't a good thing? Seriously?
No, I guess, I don't want anybody to feel as though they're imprisoned or they have to do something they don't want to do. But I feel as though when the government raises our children, they've done an abysmal job.
How does the government raise our children?
Well, as soon as they're in kindergarten, the parents are no longer with them. I mean, they come home at 5 o'clock. Mom is tired. She doesn't have the time.
Why does the government? You said the government raises our children. How does the government raise our children? You didn't
in the public school system, which most of us are, we don't all get to go to private school or have nannies. So we basically become subjects in an indoctrination camp.
Oh, why aren't you subjects in an indoctrination camp in, let's say, private schools? I went to Catholic school, very proud of that. Why was I not indoctrinated in Catholicism?
Well, perhaps you were. I mean, I don't know. Every experience is going to be different. I mean, I just.
But you said the government. You said, first of all, you went. It's very interesting. If you look at what we have talked about so far, we have been through every permutation from what you started. Each fact not supported by anything independent. One was I heard somebody say, and feminism, women's lib. Or what about that? I don't know, capitalism, this. And I thank you for the call. Nothing of what he said. Listen to me carefully. And please, I'm not trying to be mean, but that is a perfect example of the lack of critical thinking. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's instructional. There's a certain degree of didactic benefit that we appreciate from that. Nothing of what he said had anything to do with his premise. Women's lib, I think, is the best thing for women to be able to say, I am able to enjoy the workforce and the workplace. A woman does not necessarily have to be a mother if she does not want to. However, by the same token, there are some women who are told unless they go out of their way, unless they go out of to not be a mother, that somehow they don't feel fulfilled. If that's what you believe, that's great. But I think women should also be put it this way. I want to return to the notion of if women want a housewife, okay? You've heard of a midwife, midwifery. I want housewifery. So that is the valedictory of our first hour involving Happy Mother's Day. Coming up, this wonderful fraud called transgender cosplay. Costume play, performative nonsense. And there is an interesting segue. If we have time, we'll get into dark woke. And if we really have time, the facts of World War II that people do not want to hear about because they have versions of reality. Don't forget what Tolstoy said. History would be a wonderful thing if only it were true. More coming up with Lionel, 800-848-9222. I'll be here until 5 a.m., whether you like it or not, on this, as we celebrate Mother's Day. All you mothers.
I fly on clouds.
77 ABC.
Now, Lionel is on your radio.
Alrighty, Lionel with you on Mother's Day. Remember, one of these days, your mother's gonna not be here. So do yourself a favor. And listen to those of us who have who would do anything to go back and say, boy, I should have done more. Just listen to those, listen to your elders, listen to people who know what's going on, pay attention. I'm going to talk about two things in this particular hour. Dark woke, I love this, sounds like a chocolate, and transgender cosplay. Cosplay is, of course, the way the kids call. It's kind of a portmanteau, a truncation, a neologism of sorts of costume and play. And I want to explain something to you. First, I believe that when it comes to your gender and your identification, the two are completely different. You can identify as a kumquat, as a stapler, and I don't care about that. Doesn't mean you're necessarily, mentally ill. But as far as gender goes, in the rarest of occasions, there's hermaphroditism, hermaphrodite status, where you literally have literally. And by the way, kids, please don't say literally all the time. Don't say that. You're annoying. And I watch, you probably don't know this. Maybe you do know this. My favorite, when I want to relax, I watch YouTubes of people getting arrested. Cops, stops, body cam stuff. And what they will do is they say, you don't understand it, bruh. Not bruh. I was literally driving, and what does that word literally mean? Versus what, figuratively? Yes, I know you were literally driving. That's why I literally pulled you over. What does this mean? In any event. So, I want to talk to you about something, about gender, because gender is one thing, identity is a different story. But I want to ask you a very simple question, and this is the most important. This is so critical. Transgender, for the most part today, is costume play. It's performative. This is a very, very critical question, and you're not alone if you've asked questions whether transgender is indeed some kind of is this a fad like tattoos or studded earrings, pink hair? It's a very interesting question. And it's okay for you to raise an eyebrow at the sheer volume of all of a sudden, public transgender declarations, especially from Hollywood elites and their kids. Their spawn, their evil seed. What was once a rare and, I would think would be a deeply personal journey has now exploded into a social trend, a fad, some political lightning rod, and for some of these people out there, these chidrulos, a calculated branding tool. Look at me, I'm trans. So let's start with the numbers. Less than 0.5%. 0.5%. That's half of 1%, you got it, of Americans, do the math, identified as transgender 2 decades ago. 0.5. Today, over 2%, about 2%. And even higher among younger generations. Why? What happened? Is there some kind of pharmacological, evolutionary, what? Now, in elite, I use that word carefully, and mockingly, in elite entertainment circles, it feels more, for some people, like maybe 20%, especially when it comes to celebrities and their kids. So something doesn't add up here. Either, listen to me carefully, either Hollywood is experiencing this wildly, sudden, spontaneous, disproportionate genetic anomaly all of a sudden out of nowhere, or, and I think it's probably this, there's a cultural incentive and perhaps financial, some incentive structure at work here, one that rewards identity declarations and this transgender status establishment with media exposure, brand deals, and social clout, and before Doge and Elon killed USAID, money. Now let's be honest, okay? Or as my friend says, I'm going to be as honest as I possibly can be. The entertainment industry thrives, of course, on attention, especially in an age right now where it is collapsing before your very eyes. And in an age and during an epoch and or epoch, as some say, during a time when headlines and, I guess, social media frequency mean relevance, and relevance means money, some of these folks seem to be strategically, hear me out, aligning their personal lives with politically correct narratives. Imagine that. Kind of like it's manufactured, like it's not authentic. And now we're seeing this pattern. Okay, celebrity announces their child is transgender or non-binary. Okay? Next, mainstream media flood you and everybody with fawning coverage and recognition. Then, social media accounts explode in followers, and then woke companies line up with endorsement deals. At least that's the way it was before. And the press isn't just reporting this, it's celebrating this. Celebrating it, I say causing it. Celebrating it, validating it, and weaponizing these, all of a sudden, these spontaneous announcements out of nowhere as ideological statements. Isn't that something? Now, mathematically, it makes no sense. And it's no longer about the child's well-being. That has nothing to do with it. It's about the narrative. It's about this Hollywood narrative, this storyline. And that's what makes it so dangerous, because here's the story. While the media, social and, I guess, heritage or whatever, while they glamorize hormone treatments, puberty blockers, mutilation, gender assignment, gender reaffirmation, and while they preach surgical, quote, I'm doing air quotes here, liberation, they, at the same time, they kind of gloss over the irreversible, incalculable, inexplicable, unimaginable damage, lifelong health problems, medicalization, everything from incontinence to the ability to perform, to whatever. And the social pressure it places on the vulnerable, developing kids. Let me tell you something. For the average kid growing up in a confusing world, it's tough enough. But hearing that gender is fluid and identity is a trend can be, well, needless to say, deeply destabilizing. Kids are told that. Oh, it's because kids, especially when you're old enough, or you're not old enough, when you are in the position of wanting to be important and relevant and cool and in and hip, you'll say whatever, you'll rephrase your lingo, you'll change the way you, all of these aspects, all of these things that become part of your worldview. You will do everything before your identity has solidified. So now, and we hear this all the time. Oh, we had one time, it was so funny, somebody's kind of a friend of a friend said, oh, so-and-so, Courtney is at the university, and we're so happy. Why? Well, she's fluid. I told my wife, she's not fluid. You know how many girls, and we can do a random sample here. You know how many girls go to college, they feel free, and they go through these bouts of, quote, intimacy where they swear they're lesbians or whatever. And sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. We don't even use that word, lesbian. I prefer sapphic, but I'm old school. And then later on they go, okay, that's it, because it's kind of an intimacy. They want to fit in. They're not really sure who they are. That's not all cases, but a lot of them is true. And when they see celebrities being praised and platformed for their kids transitioning, it can, and usually does, push them towards decisions they don't understand. Decisions with lifelong consequences. And let me also tell you, a child cannot determine or declare his or her genetic or gender status. Kids don't even know their favorite color. I thought I was Batman until I was 30. So how am I supposed to determine? Yeah, Mom, go ahead. Cut away. Because the idea is that we got to get you before puberty to make sure that we can fix this and set you in some kind of some permanent genetic amber, some resin. So you're frozen. You're frozen. We got to make sure we get you before the transition, before nature kicks over. But here's the kicker. Very few people really are actually asking, why is this explosion happening? Why are we seeing so many more children identifying as transgender in Hollywood than in entire counties and states across Middle America? Why? Why are so many actors and producers and media figures all of a sudden leading the charge, all seemingly simultaneously? Why does this very small population have such a large number of kids who are transgender? Why? Why does the entertainment press treat any questioning of this phenomenon as hate speech? Why is this hate speech? For me to say, I don't even understand this. Because what we do is we normally say, just like Bobby Kennedy Jr. would say, hey, we notice there's a higher incidence of myocarditis in, let's say, in certain vaccine protocols. There might be greater cancer in red dye number 3. See, it's about shaping the cultural narrative and bending and twisting and distorting public perception. And remember what it's also about, demonizing dissent. Oh, yeah. Because it's not enough for me to advocate this. No, I've got to shut you down and shut you up. I got to call you a racist, a homophobe, a transphobe. Shut up, you're wrong. It's with your fake speech and your disinformation and bad information and misinformation and all this nonsense. It's ridiculous. And if you ask questions, you're a bigot. You're a racist. You're a transphobe. And if you do the math, you're labeled a conspiracy theorist. But the truth is staring you in the face. Identity has become commodified. It's become commercialized. Transgenderism, especially in the elite class, as we call them, has been politicized, monetized, fetishized. Let me see what other I's I can come up with. By a media industrial complex that, and you see it all the time, it rewards this kind of a mindless compliance and always punishes you to be skeptical or from being skeptical. This isn't about caring for kids. It's about pushing a narrative. And in the process of this, truth and science and sanity are all gone. Now, let me tell you something. We can argue why this is. There was a great interview that Tucker Carlson did with a fellow who explained how we always talk about DEI, but you don't remember ESG. ESG and folks from BlackRock on down turned the switch and all of a sudden came up with means by which various various groups started to change the way they thought. Why do you think the Bud Light thing came from? Remember Dylan Mulvaney and that? What was that about? Do you think it was just some attempt to take this storied American beer, dynasty and destroy it? Why? Why did that happen? What was the reason for that? What? Let me tell you something. If there's one thing I'm going to teach you, is to keep thinking. And I'll tell you when you're done thinking. Don't turn the page until we're done with this. This is not just happenstance. Let me also tell you something regarding the new Pope. Now listen to me. Don't tell anybody I told you this because people get upset about this. I'm very fascinated by the Vatican. I have a website, LionelMedia.com. Okay? And that's all. That's my stuff. It's kind of on the side. I've got a comedy show coming up on July 19th at the Cutting Room. And I do, part of my other life, so to speak. And I'm fascinated with what's happening in the Catholic Church. And I'm saying to you that the papacy and what is happening right now has still remnants and qualities of a woke, dangerously left, subliminal kind of it's almost like the endothelium, like the lining, the magic carpet of the church. And it's permeated everything. And if you think these people are going away, you have no idea. And the coverage that I've heard of Leo is almost infantile. Infantilism, puerility, juvenescent, it's sophomoric, it's childish. Oh, he's from Chicago. What is that about? He's one of us. No, he's not one of you. He's a pope. What are you talking about? No, he's from Chicago and he likes hot dogs and Unos and deep dishes. He's been in Peru. He's Augustinian. Do you know what this is about? Do you think do you think that has nothing to do with it? Oh my God. Now remember, I got to be very careful Because when most of the time, remember something. Listen to me carefully. Don't ever tell anybody don't tell anybody I told you this. You do know that whenever you're on mainstream media, I mean, the usual, not here, not on WABC. No. But I mean, if you want to go into CNN or the local TV stations, the first thing they will tell you is don't make any waves. Don't throw any wild ideas out there. Just learn to nod your head and comply and provide the narrative. So, going back to this, you are never going to ask the questions that I'm asking about how come all of a sudden in 20 years, how did we go from 0.5% of people claiming to be transgender to now over 2%. What happened? Is it in the water? Is this some kind of a weird, what? You know what it is. It's performative. Our number is 800-848-9222. And the best, coming up, I'm gonna cram this one in here. Dark woke. This is the one where you're going to say, I didn't know that. Oh, yes. See, what I want you to do is, when I get done and we sign off at 5, I want you to look back and say, I didn't know that. I never thought about that. Aha! That's what I want to do. Our number is 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. This is Lionel with you on 77 WABC.
Talk Radio 77 WABC.
Overnight with Lionel.
WABC 77.
Oh, yeah. Caballero.
Ay, acá vendrá Guatuz. Ese mulato que mide 7 pies y pesa 169 libras. Y cuando ese mulato llega al solar, todo el mundo dice, a correr, que ahí llegó.
I swear to God, it sounds like Cuban. Oye, ¿cómo anda con los pies? Óyeme, que te pega, chico.
A mí, todo me tiene miedo.
And there's a word that Cubans use. It's not Cuban, but it's born in Tampa. And it's a huge Cuban population. And I could throw some words at you that'll just... In any event, Lionel's with you. We're talking about transgenderism and the performative basis of this. Ladies and gentlemen, Lenny, he claims to be called Lenny. Lenny, you're on 77 WABC.
Hi, Lionel. Great show as usual. You are really leaving everybody spellbound today.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, I love it. I remember you from years ago.
You're the one.
You were fantastic. Yes. No, there's plenty of people. I saw you in the comedy clubs too. You're funny. I saw you on the picks when you would do the spin move like James Brown. You were fat. You're a natural hand. That's what you are.
Thank you, sir.
Go Buchanan, go.
Okay, terrific. You know what? I got to tell you something. Listen, you don't understand something. I love a bit. I really do. And trolling is great at being a chronic, but work on your material. I'll give you the chance. I'm not going to cut you off. What was that? He waited for us. It's not even good. In any event, Matt in the Bronx, you're on 77 WABC.
Yeah, anybody who seriously studies World War II would have to come to the conclusion that World War II was really won, at least in Europe, on the Eastern Front.
Absolutely.
When you look at the just really titanic battles, Kursk, Stalingrad,
absolutely,
Leningrad.
Yep.
It was the Red Army that rolled over the Wehrmacht, and Hitler made probably the biggest mistake of the war in launching Operation Barbarossa, which was the invasion of the Soviet Union in 1941.
Yep.
Before he knocked out Britain with a reverse D-Day plan called Operation Sea Lion. He never carried out Operation Sea Lion, which was an amphibious invasion of Britain So if he had done that, D-Day never would have happened. But with regard to the Eastern Front, it's really the Soviet armies that really won the day.
Well, let me ask you this question. Bottom line question. If the United States had never entered World, the Pacific Theater is a different kettle of fish, as it were. But if the United States had never entered World War II, these European, could the Russians have beaten Germany?
In my personal opinion, I would think yes.
Everybody who's anybody says yes. It would have been longer. It would have been more brutal. Think about this. And by the way, this is not in any way meant to diminish or trivialize the American contribution. But we live, Matt, as you know, in a world of Saving Private Ryan. That's what most people think. If you look at the military deaths in World War II, American about 15,000, okay? Russia, deaths between, let's say, 9 million and 11 million. Okay, civilian deaths, 1,700 versus, let's say, 15 million. Total deaths of World War II. America, 419,000. Russia, between 21 and 27 million people. We lost 0.32% of our population. Russia, 13% of their population. I mean, and why we didn't, on May the 9th, why we didn't send any kind of representative to Russia to celebrate, because ours is May 8th or VE Day, theirs by virtue of the time change. And I mean, I don't understand. I don't understand this. We live in this Russophobic lunacy where we're still in this Boris and Natasha, Dr. Strangelove world. I don't understand it. Why do you think people have such a hard time? As Tolstoy said, history would be a wonderful thing if only it were true. Why is that?
Well, with regard to the Russophobia, it's really artificial. Mm-hmm. With the end of the Cold War 30 years ago, with the dissolution of the Soviet Union, you would have thought that nonsense would have stopped. But the thing is that the neoconservatives who control both parties with regard to their foreign policy and the arms industry in this country, the Boeings, the Raytheons, the Allied Signals, they need a boogeyman to justify $1 trillion.
Absolutely. And also, remember this, Matt. When most people, if you ask most people on the street, what's NATO about? They'll say, is that a part of us? Well, the rule of NATO is no Russia, no NATO. It's that simple. Russia,
right?
I mean, a Soviet, Kennan, the grand man, the author of Soviet Containment said, after the fall of the Soviet Union, forget NATO, get rid of it. And we said, oh, no, we're not. Oh, no. This is like the greatest franchise ever. And what about when we told Gorbachev, we will not move if you unify Germany, we will not move 1 foot east. Nope, don't worry about it at all. And we lied after lie after lie. I don't understand it. What is it? They were our ally. I forget afterwards, forget Stalin, forget the Cold War, forget, the Rosenbergs, forget that. History is this thing that we just cannot comprehend. And by the way, Matt, what did we do in 1962? We threatened to go to war against the world, against Russia, against the Soviet Union, because of Cuba. It was actually about Turkey, but still, 90 miles away. 90 miles away. Do you know how long Putin's been saying his red line of the NATO since 2014? You're not going to have a NATO country on our border, period. We've got the Monroe Doctrine. We forget, we say things. I don't understand it.
Right, and it's completely unnecessary. I mean, the needless provocations of the Russian Federation. I mean, thank God Putin is where he is now, and he's president of the Russian Federation. Because you have to remember, somebody who's less patient, less pragmatic, and more nationalistic and jingoistic, would have already launched a nuclear button and annihilated the United States. Because, again, you point out 1962, and you mentioned Turkey. We provoked the Cuban Missile Crisis by putting intermediate-range nuclear missiles on the border with Russia.
Absolutely. This is the thing. Let me say, when you talk about this, we have this version, and you hear it all the time. Putin wants to go in and reclaim Ukraine. There are 4 oblasts and Crimea, and try explaining referenda, explain the Russian speaking, people who identify. Forget it. I mean, just don't even bother with this. But there was this idea. And by the way, Matt, what happened when Putin was going to meet with Zelensky and Boris Johnson came in and told Zelensky, "Oh, no, you don't. Oh, no. And let me ask you also, Matt, if this is so critical for Ukraine to be a member of NATO, why aren't they in NATO yet? Even NATO knows they don't want Ukraine. That was a joke. It was an artifice. It was subterfuge. It was a complete and total goading and this provocation. And you're right about one thing. Thank God that Russia didn't say, okay, I'm going to show you who we are. And what about when you see Lavrov standing next to Marco Rubio and the provocative, this nonsense that they're saying? And I know people love it here. I know that's a kind of a Fox News, like, oh, that's terrific. And Pete Hegseth, hey, bless his heart. But what are you talking? And why do we want to engage Iran or any country? Why? I don't understand. What are we doing? What is this?
Well, to tell you the truth, with regard to the neoconservatives, that's another area of the world where they've been fomenting nonstop trouble for the United States. Because the last 20 years, what have we been doing in the Middle East? We've been engaged in knocking off one enemy of Israel after another.
Well,
when the Israelis could do it themselves.
Well, here is the thing, which is the most important, and I don't in any way mean to be dismissive. I always have to be careful to talk about either Russia, Ukraine, the Middle East, Houthis, what is it called? The Gate of Tears, Houthis, Yemen, Hezbollah. Good luck. Because, and let me tell you this much, as you know, and I'm sorry to say this, Americans do not have a lot of time for things like geography, history. We have these ideas of we are the center of the world. We are the greatest. We are exceptional. Everybody wants to be us. We're the best. Okay, fine. Yeah. Okay, terrific. The problem with that is that there are other countries who've been around a lot longer who have a completely different perception, and they're saying, you don't know what we are doing here and how this balance works out. We look at other countries. I love when we say things like, Iran is theocratic. Now, let me tell you something. I don't trust anybody. Let me go on the record and say one thing. I'm not America first. I'm America only. I don't have time for this. Every time my car hits a pothole, I'm thinking, that's more money that's going to some country that has nothing to do with us. So anyway, we have this idea, and we love this idea of, look, let me see if I can be the average American. And I say this with all due respect. Just tell me who the good guy is and who the bad guy is. Who's the good guy? See, I live in a black and white world, apodictic, left and right, up and down, right and wrong, right and left. I don't know nuance. I don't know subtlety. I don't know perspective. I don't know anything. I don't know Sunni from Shia. All I know is I've been told these people are crazy. They squat when they eat, and they eat with sticks, and they wear funny hats, and they speak a language I don't understand, and they're theocratic, and they're crazy. Well, what about the Vatican? What? What about the Vatican? That's the oldest non-familial theocratic monarchy. Wait a minute. Hold it. Don't say that about the Catholic. Well, what do you think the Vatican is? I don't even know where to start. How do I start this? Do you know that Putin one time, and whenever you say this, people say, oh, you're an apologist. I'm not an apologist. Can you explain to Pakistan? Look, before we begin, Try this. I'm going to send you to a country, and I want you to say, you got the bomb, you don't have the bomb. You can have the bomb, but you can't have the bomb. Good luck with that one. Explain to somebody why. Good luck. Well, you're dangerous. Why aren't they dangerous? Well, maybe they're dangerous. We are told from most of us, just nod your head. And I'm going to say this with all due respect. The most dangerous person in the world, the most dangerous, is the person who says, my country never makes a mistake. Unless it's a Democrat. It's like being a permissive parent. The first thing you have to understand is that your country and your government are two completely different concepts. I love America. I love my country. I love jazz music and Fats Waller and, hot dogs and baseball and movies and our music and our culture from sea to shining sea. I love that. I love who we are and the way our accent and our culture and okay, fine. Government? Oh, I'm a stranger in a strange land. Coming up, we'll talk a little bit about this. In fact, I'm going to go through some facts about World War II because it was May 9th or May 8th that we talked about this and how everybody just kind of looked the other way. All of this on the 77 WABC with me, Lionel.
Talk Radio 77 WABC.
Overnight with Lionel.
WABC 77.
In any event, my friends, our number is 800-848-9222. Let me give you a couple of statistics about this. This is about, how do I say this? There is something that has been called the idea of realism. And there are people like Mearsheimer and others who talk about it. And it's not just his idea, but I look at history and crime the way it is. Not the way it should be, not the way I want it to be, but the way it is. And that will get you into a lot of trouble, especially as I discuss with you dark woke. You're going to love this one. And the first thing you have to do is you have to ask yourself, what is it that the other side believes? Now, for some particular reason, it's okay for you to just absolutely scream and yell about Russia. I happened to tune in. I don't know why. There was this, what is his name? Oh, yes, De Niro, who plays, De Niro's in one role, no matter what it is. There was something, 0 Day. It's on Netflix. And it marks De Niro's first leading role in a television series. And he plays, this is De Niro, George Mullen, a former president who is tasked with investigating a devastating cyber attack that plunges the nation into chaos. Guess who the bad guy is? That's right. Some Ruski. And look at the way, it's just, first of all, he is the most overrated actor. I do not understand. Where did this where is it? He is the same. He wears glasses. He doesn't wear glasses. He gets a haircut. He doesn't get a haircut. He gains weight. He doesn't gain weight. It's the same guy. He breaks into this. He has one style. It's one thing only. Anyway, so why is he doing TV? Simple. Because he is so overextended. Because probably they cut that USAID money. Because this was a guy who was the most anti-Trump of the Democratic world. He was out of control. He and the usual suspects. Don't think for a moment. Anybody seen Rob Reiner lately? Nope. Anybody see that? Nope. When you ask somebody, remember, I look at people and I say, tell me what they think. I'll get into the who's right and who's wrong. Because the first question you got to ask is, do you think that Russian people, or do you think that Germans, do you think at the height of World War II, the Wehrmacht or whoever, said, we're evil. I'm joining this crew because I'm evil. They say, no, they don't think they're evil. I don't know anybody who ever says, well, I'm evil. I'm evil. That's what I'm doing. There were some serial killers who did this. But during World War II, this is the part that just drew, I don't even know where to start with how crazy this is. There are these people who don't understand this. Do you know that in 1921, and this has been debated, so let me just give you a proviso. 80% to 67%, I don't know, of Soviet men born in 1921 died during World War II. And they say, well, it's not just because of World War II. Really? 67 to 80% of all Soviet men born in 1921 are dead? And you think, what was a plague? Do you know what this does to you? Do you have any conception of what that is? This is, I mean, think about that. And we have, when it came to March the 9th, their Victory Day, we say, oh, no, don't. We don't acknowledge Russia. They had nothing to do with this. The Soviet Union, nothing to do with it. I cannot believe it. If you think about what they did, the amount, Barbarossa, the relevance of this, it's just incredible. So, also ask yourself this question. Vietnam, I know so many people, great men, and they're getting older and we're losing more and more. Vietnam veterans who fought proudly. But you ask them, what do you think the Vietnamese thought of us? And most people look at you like, I don't give a damn what they thought. That's the problem. What are we doing over there? There was a great Shelby Foote reference one time. A great Shelby Foote that said there was a story supposedly, if you recall this, supposedly there was a general or somebody who stopped or was involved in, I think, interrogating a captured Confederate. And they said, somebody to the effect, he said, son, why are you fighting us? And he said, because you're here. And I said, oh, I get it. See, from their point of view, the Vietnamese, we were the enemy. We went over there and bombed the hell out of them. Why? They don't know. They don't understand what you're talking about. And when it talks about the end of World War II, you know, the Russian reality and American myths and vice versa. See, the way Americans understand the end of World War II is often, and I'm sorry to say this, shaped less by historical fact than by Hollywood. I mean, if you want to watch John Wayne, good luck with that one. For most Americans, the narrative centers around D-Day, Saving Private Ryan. That's it. American triumphant march, U.S. forces through France and into Germany. And that happened. I'm not in any way suggesting it never happened. But they don't know anybody else. And in this version, America shows up, kicks down the door of fascism, liberates Europe, and that's it, on our own. But that isn't the whole story. In fact, it's not even the main story. The idea, and people it kills them to say this. The Soviet Union's role in defeating Nazi Germany was decisive, brutal, overwhelming, while the United States and Britain were still planning the Normandy invasion in 1944, which is noble without question. The Red Army was already turning the tide of war in terms of human cost. The Battle of Stalingrad, 1942, alone, 2 million casualties. The siege of Leningrad lasted 872 days. As our caller said, the Battle of Kursk saw the largest tank battle in history. And for 4 years, the Soviets bore the brunt of Hitler's war machine. And whether you like it or not, they absorbed and repelled the bulk of German forces. And by the time American boots hit Normandy, the Wehrmacht had already lost its strategic initiative, more than 80% of its wartime casualties came from the Eastern Front. Think about this. Total Soviet military deaths during war are estimated over 8 million. Civilian deaths push it to 27 million. Now, look, I'm not trying to say or in any way diminish American bravery. Believe me, or our sacrifice, or our industrial might, or how we, and I'm not even talking about the Pacific. But remember, this is something which is critical. The U.S. supplied the Soviets with thousands of trucks and planes and food stuffs and all that through Lend-Lease, opened a vital second front in Western Europe. But the idea that how we won the war alone by ourselves, it's not true. And it doesn't in any way relinquish or diminish anything. I'm talking about the truth. Recently, we talked about the not the celebration, but the recognition of finally leaving Saigon. What was Vietnam about? I still don't understand what that was about. I still don't get that. What were we doing? Shall I go into Korea, the forgotten war? Let me explain. I'm a very unpopular person in many circles because I don't believe in fantasy. There's stuff that we do that's better than anybody. But you don't lie. But Americans, not all, but many of them say, I love the lie. What are you talking about? I love it. Don't tell me the truth. Tell me the lie. Tell me the story. Tell me the myth. Tell me the fable. Don't tell me the truth. I don't want to hear it. I want to hear how everything is great and groovy. And I don't want to live like that. I want the truth. Coming up, dark woke. Oh, this is going to, people are going to just turn the radio off with this one because it's true. It's true. I remember one thing. Years ago, there were people called shock jocks. Howard Stern and this and that. You know what the shock jock is today? You know what he talks about? You know what's shocking? The truth. The truth will get you fired, arrested, destroyed. The truth is the rarest of commodities, the rara avis of the world. 800-848-9222. More coming up on the Lionel Show on 77 WABC.
Colonel Jessup, did you order the code red?
You don't have to answer that question.
I'll answer the question. You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth.
You can't handle the truth.
Overnight with Lionel.
WBBC 77.
Alrighty, Lionel with you. 800-848-9222. Jim in Subware. You're on 77 WABC. Jim.
That's Southold, New York, out on the East End.
All right.
I want to swing back to your discussion about the transgender.
Yes, sir.
It seems to me it's a known fact that that testosterone levels in men are down 50% over the last 50 years.
No, that's not true.
Are you sure?
No, that's what people say all the time. Go ahead.
Well, I stand to be corrected. What do you think? Do you think that there's an issue there?
The idea that people think that testosterone levels are so low that men are losing their vitality, vivacity, sexual prowess. No, absolutely not. I mean, it might be lower and higher in some places, but men are still men. Do you see any? Do you see any dearth of beards anywhere? I don't.
Yeah, I suppose. I guess I have this image, like, talk about World War II. Mm-hmm. World War II was fought by cigar-chomping men with stubble. And if you look at that, take a look at what's advertised in the New York New York Times color magazines. It's an entirely different image of what the American male is today.
But that is a subjective account. I just looked at, on an average, listen to this, population-wide, testosterone levels have been declining over the past few decades. Now, what's the next logical question? How much? See, it's like, for example, is there a climate change? Yes. But the question is, what causes it? A 2007 Massachusetts study found that men's testosterone levels declined by 1% per year from 87 to 2004. After adjusting for age, weight, whatever, similar trends have been found in other countries. Now, what are the reasons for it? What's the reason? Obesity, endocrine disruptors, chemicals like BPA, phthalates, parabens found in plastic, sedentary lifestyle, chronic stress, environmental toxins. Now, other people are saying, for example, soy heavy. Another one, too, is people say, you're a soy boy. So a lot of this is thrown out, but without really going into deeper. Here's a misconception. Lower testosterone, lower masculinity. Not every man needs testosterone boosters or TRT, none of that. And normal levels vary wildly from man to man. Lab reference ranges are suspect. What's normal today may be 30% lower 30 years ago. So all of this stuff is, when you just say these things like men's testosterone, and you think that testosterone means bravery or whatever, that has nothing to do with testosterone. What it has to do with is culture and the like. Go to countries with basically high or low protein, not low protein, low animal fat, high soy diets. China, they don't have any population problems in the least. Now so it depends upon what you want the reality to be. Okay? Dave in Rockland, you're on 77 WABC.
Hey, Lionel, welcome back home.
Thank you, sir.
Here's the thing. You're addressing the thing about manhood, and you're tying it into social science and nonsense with chemicals. Don't forget, we got how many generations of non-working men? What I mean is men that are in the garages, doing body shops, electricians, plumbers, the people that move the earth. That is what most of us define as how a man protects his family, feeds his family.
What are you, Fred Flintstone? What? A guy who works in the garage is the way you define masculinity? What?
No, that is not how you define masculinity. You are trying to define the...
No, tell me what you define. You define it. What are you saying? Forget me. Okay. You define it.
Listen, let's start from the middle. My definition of as a man is someone that's responsible for what they do and how they do it.
That's an adult.
And stand up for everything they do.
But a woman can show the same traits. That's called adulthood and maturity. That's not masculinity.
No. You didn't let me finish, brother. First of all, you introduced the opposite sex into a man conversation.
No. You said my definition of a man, which parenthetically means exclusively to a man, because if men and women
Correct.
share it, you said was basically responsibility and all that. That has nothing to do with being a man. What does a man mean? Is a homosexual a man? Answer this question. Is a homosexual man a man?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting. I'm surprised you said that. So what is not a man?
Shirking responsibility.
That's an adult.
Not man.
You mean an adult. You don't mean a man. That gender has nothing to do with it.
I don't.
What does a man
I don't mean?
An
adult.
What is the difference between a man and a woman? Both responsible, both leaders of the community. What's the difference? What makes a man and a woman a woman? What?
Well, it all depends on the relationship that they're in, right? Some women take the lead, some men take the lead.
So it has nothing to do with gender.
Sexuality and physiology. What do you mean? There's everything.
It has nothing to do. What you've done is you provided you started off with this rather amorphous, kind of a weird protean, EAN, version of man. But what you really were talking about was adulthood, responsibility, Billy, you're killing me. You're killing me.
77 ABC. Now, Lionel is on your radio.
Alrighty, Lionel with you, the final hour of this thing of ours. Remember, we are on Saturday and Sunday mornings from 2 to 5 a.m., the greatest time in the world. Why? Well, look who's up. You. Also, happy Mother's Day to all you mothers out there. Couple of things I want to explain. This last call was terrific, and I thank you, sir, for how sometimes I learn from hearing that which is incorrect. People sometimes say, today to be a man, there was a man, we were a man. When I was a kid, a man, and dads and what men were. And then that kind of involves maybe like the sexual, not sexual, but the gender, testosterone, World War II, the proud generation. Being a man, as you know, as I was trying to say, isn't about testosterone level or facial hair or bravado or how loud you are or whether you're into boxing or mixed martial arts or any of that stuff. It's about things like responsibility, discipline, integrity, truth. Think about it. How many people confuse hormone levels with maturity? It's nonsense. Real manhood, as people are always talking about, it begins where impulse ends. Think about it. It's about sacrifice. An adult, man or woman, this is important. An adult takes responsibility for their actions. An adult, women, men, they provide for others. You protect what matters. You stand firm under pressure. It has nothing to do with whether you can do woodworking or fix a carburetor. And testosterone might be a little bit dealing with aggression, perhaps, maybe your confidence, maybe. That also can be serotonin levels and others as well. But it doesn't teach sacrifice. And also this thing called delayed gratification. Moral accountability. Try explaining that one today. You don't become a man or an adult by virtue of any kind of secondary sexual characteristic. It's about other things too. The term, when we use the word be a man, it also means be mature. That's kind of sort of what we mean by this. And I also mentioned something before, which is important about this. This is called realism, political realism. And this is something which I think is more important than being a conservative or a liberal, whatever that means. It means, especially when it comes to IR or international relations and political philosophies, it means that power, a country's power, not ideals, what we stand for, but power is the central force, the fulcrum, the nucleus of political life. Realism, that's what you are. And the theory holds that the world is kind of governed and controlled by competitive self-interest. And things like morals and considerations and ideals, they take a backseat to national survival, security, and influence. Let me tell you something. I am America first and only. Not because I think I'm better than you. I don't care. I'm here because it's all I know. It's all I know is this. Remember something. This is the big. States are the main actors. Realists see nations and nation states really as the primary players. We are it. And we are self-interested and we're selfish. And we rationalize everything that we do to maintain our own security and power. Period. Anarchy rules the world. Think about this. Anarchy versus hierarchy. See, anarchy rules the world. There's no global authority that enforces the rules. Nobody. Others have said, and you can find fault with Mearsheimer and others, but there's no 911 you can call. It's self-help. It's deterrence. We're the only ones looking out for us, especially when you're us. There's nobody to help us, period. Power is the currency of the world. Vote for me. Military, economic, diplomatic. That's it. That's what controls influence. Not about how nice we are, or what our thoughts are, or our core values. We pursue that which is American. Period. We care more about gaining an edge over our rivals than anything else. And I'm sorry to say this, please don't take it the wrong way. Morality is secondary. Idealism and humanitarian goals and, global justice and all this stuff is nonsense. This is rhetoric. It's moral posturing. It's self-interest, period. This is not Ayn Rand. Please don't ever, ever, ever confuse me with that nonsensical objectivism crap. Conflict is inevitable. By the way, this goes back to Thucydides, Machiavelli, Thomas Hobbes, Morgenthau, Henry Kissinger. This is the reality. I don't care about the way things should be, No. Now let me read this one to you. This is the best. Okay. This is something you're going to be so hip to, and nobody's brought it up enough. And I'm surprised it hasn't made more of a play. It's called Dark Woke. Woke. Jasmine Crockett, have you watched her lately? She is the white racist dream. You know what I mean? The racist that everybody's talking about. She's loud, bilious, profane. And she's being portrayed as the face of black politics. I don't even think that's true. And the media glorify the radical and not the brilliant. She is it. Move over AOC. Move over Ilhan Omar. Jasmine Crockett. And the reason why she is being promoted, believe it or not, I'm telling you again, is because people want her to be the face of black politics, even though she's not. People absolutely fear articulate black leaders. So what do we do? Not we. What do they do, I should say? They elevate chaos over character by framing the narrative as though she is the control element. You see, the more shocking, the more profound, the more, I don't know what the word is, more brutal, I guess the story is, the easier it becomes to exploit it. See, they're making her out. She's catching the headlines. And the more we point to her, the better. Al Sharpton and others are saying, this is something. And it's not, by the way, it's not coherent. Outrage kind of distracts people from scrutiny. And a lot of people are thinking this is not good right now. And you're going to be seeing more and more and more of this angry. There used to be this word when I was a kid. They call it militant. It's like, that's not really it. Dark woke is the term right now. By the way, recently there was a black congresswoman who was screaming at Bessent. Would you answer this question? And Maxine Waters comes in. It's loud. Oh, and MTG, by the way, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Boebert and Luna and Mace. That's more of like a white version of this, but nobody's paying attention to them. It's Jasmine Crockett. So dark woke is this term used, and most of the time critically. It describes a more militant, racially divisive or divisive, depending upon where you're from, this kind of like a hybrid or an offshoot of what we're used to as the broader woke movement. Woke originally referred to awareness, of racial injustice and social inequality. That was what woke meant. Dark woke means a shift toward aggressive identity politics, aggressive resentment-driven activism, open hostility, loud, angry, open hostility towards tradition, especially white people, law enforcement, Western institutions. You see it. And listen to me carefully. When you watch, as do I, YouTube and other social media platforms, what is becoming more and more seen? The wild, frenetic, crazed, not even racial, but congregations of black, normally younger, in restaurants and Chipotle. I didn't get my my taco sauce. I'm going to go crazy. I'm going to break things. It's being exalted. And it's the minority it's this de minimis faction of the whole world. But that's what gets clicks. That's what gets attention. And that's what reinforces the idea of this aggressive identity politics. Now, here are the elements of this. This is the most important. Listen to this one. And this is perfect. And there's a lot. Remember, dark woke. Element number 1. Racial essentialism. Sounds like a class you take in college. You see, this is the idea that sees race as the core of identity, not anything else, race. And it treats individuals, not from an individual point of view, but through the prism, through the lens of kind of group think. Black, white, Asian. Race is the identity. You talk about identitarian, race. Number 2, any idea of unity, rejected. It opposes the colorblind ideals, cross-racial solidarity. You know, it loves DEI. Oh, no. It insists instead of the permanent struggle between the oppressors and the oppressed. It does not. But there is no letting up on the gas when it comes to DEI. Next, it's very aggressive expression. Profanity is normalized. Mockery, public confrontation are seen now as legitimate forms of resistance. Just like the opposite of like passive resistance, more MLK or Gandhi. Oh, no. Jasmine Crockett, loud, in your face. This is not a mistake. This is dark woke. Next, there's an entitlement to rage. My hostility is justified. My rudeness or maybe violence is a moral, rational response to my systematic oppression, my historical oppression. This is what you get. That you ask for this. Next, there's this thing called this idea of cultural inversion. This is where you celebrate and accentuate and kind of give countenance to behaviors that we kind of looked at as being antisocial, unprofessional. Now it's authenticity, rebellion. You know, what was considered now is considered absolutely. Say it loud. Then victimhood is power. See, this is the victim narrative never, ever gets let up. This is for political or personal gain. And forget responsibility, nuance. Dark woke isn't about justice. It's about revenge. It's about division. It's about this performance or performative outrage. Who can yell the loudest? Jasmine Crockett is the quintessential lightning rod, the perfect exemplar, she's perfect. Thriving on, think about this. We have not seen anything like this. Dark woke thrives on always emphasizing the grievance. You know, I don't care. They don't care whether they alienate. I'm telling you, don't think this is just one person. This is a movement. And the very coalitions that the civil rights leaders brought together, you know, let's reach across the aisle and shake hands. This is an alienation. There's an increase in visible hostility among black Americans. This is not by accident. And I'm not saying this is violent or anything like that, but verbally, rhetorically, oh yeah, loud. Whether it's politics or media or, sad to say, public incidents that are viral, it's the result of a single cause. Okay? This actually it's a single cause of multiple cultural, political anger, decades of institutional mistrust. It's so perfect. Once you are aware and once you see this, once you understand it, you realize this isn't random. And I don't know if Jasmine Crockett understands this. I don't know. But we're seeing this. Now that you've known this, now you'll say, oh, dark woke. I got it. Very interesting. Whereas before, you might see some Karen who tells you, put on your mask or whatever. This is different. And remember the role of social media. Social media increased this. Watch what happens. Spend any amount of time. Just watch YouTube because of police cameras. Look at things like when people are pulled over. I don't have to give you my license. Give me your supervisor. I'm not talking to you. You're making me feel uncomfortable. I don't know why you're stopping me. I don't have to roll my window down. I don't have to get out. I've got my phone, and my phone is not my talisman. That's my, that's my, like a talisman. That's my safety shield. I'm going to record you. I'm not getting out. Leave me alone. Why'd you stop? It's the most incredible thing you've ever seen. And it teaches people, instead of saying, oh, don't act like that, to say, no, this becomes normal. When you see wild McDonald's fights and crazy, what we used to be called wilding, people don't look at this and say, we shouldn't do this. They go, no, this is the norm. This is the role of social media. I'm telling you. Remember this. You heard this here. This, what you thought was just random, bilious, blustering anger. No. This is deliberate. Even though the purveyors and the performers of this may not necessarily know the term. 800-848-9222. Lionel with you, reminding you this is Mother's Day, and we say Happy Mother's Day to all the great mothers who are responsible for everything. Without mothers, there is no us.
I'm just curious, just to better understand your ruling. If someone on this committee then starts talking about somebody's bleach blonde, bad built butch body, that would not be engaging in personalities, correct?
A what now?
Talk Radio 77 WABC. Overnight with Lionel. WABC 77.
Sir William Lee, ladies and gentlemen, who, by the way, I'm sorry, William Gold. Will Lee, there's a musician. Spike Lee's dead. Well, I'm thinking of somebody else. Okay, fine. But anyway, I'm thinking more of a bass player, Will Lee, anyway. Not William Golden, who was with the Oak Ridge Boys. But what you're doing, without me even asking, is something that cannot be taught. It's this weird kind of a cosmic connection. You are incredible. Coming up with the Jasmine Crockett line, I didn't ask for that. Because you're listening. You're paying attention. Sometimes when we meet younger, board ops and, producer types, it's like, you gotta listen. And you gotta know what's going on in the world. You can't just come in and say, it's not about pushing a button. You are the reason God made Oklahoma, my friend. That is David Frizzell. In any event, let's go to Joaquin. Joaquin always has something to say, sometimes relevant. You're on the Lionel Show.
Yes. Good day, Lionel. Hey, something? Undeviatingly, the history of the world and of mankind is simply a story of those who conquer and those who were conquered. And, also, too, my parents actually grew up in Nazi Germany. Mm-hmm. And so I actually have some stories about that. And as a matter of fact, me and my siblings and those that fall from my tree would not be here if it was not for a psychic dachshund.
Okay.
But anyway, what we were talking about very interestingly is that, as a matter of fact, Matt, he drank, what's the word I'm looking for? He referred to me in the past, and I've looked into
Matt?
His cultures at McDonald's. And Charles Lindbergh actually had said that for the Europeans to go to war, against Germany was a bad idea for the white race. And, and his argument also was that the communists killed more people, than the Nazis did.
Okay.
So that's one point of view.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I really do. Interesting. Al in New York City, you're on 77 WABC.
Hello there, Mr. Lionel. How are you?
Good, Al.
Great show as always.
Yeah, I wanted to just say a little bit something about Russian coming into the war. They saved lots of lives for us. Number one, they kept Hitler busy with 3 million men on the East Front, as opposed to trying to go to London and further when, he encountered difficulties. In addition, Okinawa, we lost so many Marines in such a short period, and the Japanese islands are, if you go to New York to Miami, it's 1,300 miles. Japan's twice that distance in length. So we were going to have to go fight people that fought to the last man. Literally, they'd have 100 guys left after 20,000 people. So they saved us a hell of a lot. Here's another thing. We had 400,000 veterans killed in World War II, 16 million served out of 130 million people. You know how many we got left today out of 16 million?
I do not know, sir.
65,000.
Wow.
Can you imagine? World War I, 4 million. 60,000 died. You know how many are left? Zero.
Right.
So,
Al, I tell you what, Al, I appreciate, I appreciate it. I appreciate your perspective. I appreciate the numbers. I appreciate that more than you can imagine, sir. Thank you for that. Pete on Staten Island, you're on 77 WABC. Pete.
Hi, Lionel. First of all, happy Mother's Day. I don't know if your mom is alive still, whether she is, and she's in heaven with my mother, and I'm sure they're having a good time.
They are rocking it in heaven. Absolutely, sir.
Rocking and rolling. If they're together, and I'm sure they are,
Yes,
because
sir.
you and I have a lot in common. And like I told you one day, if I needed a good criminal lawyer, you're the man I would beg, borrow, and steal to obtain.
Pete, I appreciate that. That kind of endorsement, one never gets too often or enough. Wilfred in New Jersey, you're on 77 WABC with Lionel.
I want to talk to you about you were saying about the wars. In America never wins a war because we never have a war. You don't have a war when you have a line where you can't cross, like Korea, like Vietnam. No.
You're saying Korea was not a war?
And the fact that, what kind of war when you say, I'm going to go to war with you, but you can't come past First Street, okay?
Right, but don't you think normally when there is a war, a skirmish, or a battle, some type of hostility, there is something, there either is a line or someplace where you've invaded? I mean, if Hitler had remained contained in Germany and had not crossed a line, we wouldn't be discussing it, correct?
Yeah, but I was Vietnam vet, right? And Purple Heart and all that. We walked one time, we was on at night, we were walking, and then they said, hey, we got to stop.
Oh, that's another story. I agree with you 100%. Not only that, hills and numbers and take the hill and then retreat and go back. Oh, no. I agree with you 100%. And thank you for your service, sir. Robert in Canada, you're on 77 WABC with Lionel.
Yes, hi. Regarding Jasmine Crockett, I'm amazed that this hostility coming out of her mouth. You would think that at this point in time, African Americans would be trying to, the Americans that helped to build the country, and rather than divide the country, and this is very divisive. And the thought I had for a while is that if the African Americans were not brought to America as slaves, I would be wondering how many of them would be alive today because of the ravages that took place on the African continent.
Well, you know what? Let me just give you an idea. Don't try that one. I mean, you might intellectually have a point. You might say, well, do not try that one. However, let us remind ourselves this. You bring up a good point. Jasmine Crockett is the minority of, I think, African American or any type of group, but it is a new version of this. The idea that this radical racial radicalism, I know it's redundant. They think of this, as been said, as some kind of like a subset or some kind of a subdirectory of what some call the woke movement. This is, and the terms are terrific. Racial essentialism, antagonism. What critics describe as a dark woke is racial essentialism and antagonism. And the idea supposedly says, forget civility, forget, cordiality, embrace confrontation as some form of liberation. You're going to see more of it, especially with new folks, new people, new individuals being recruited to fill in the blanks, so to speak. Andy, you're on 77 WABC.
Lionel, what do you think of the recent request from the Trump administration to temporarily suspend the writ of habeas corpus?
Scares me to no end. Absolutely.
Yeah,
There's something, it sounds terrific. I understand at least the theory behind it, but it is completely contrary to the notion of not being able to challenge one's arrest or confinement. Oh, no. Pamela in New Jersey, you're on 77 WABC.
Good morning, Lionel. I just want to thank you for putting a name to what I've been seeing for the last 2 years. But sometimes I thought I was imagining it. Like, did that really just happen? What was that? And I couldn't.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm just so glad that other people are seeing it. And a facility that I go to, a Panamanian lady runs it. She was nearly in tears one day. She said, she was telling me about an incident, and I'm like, and I'm putting all this together. And wow, when you said this tonight, I am seeing it. And I've lived through the 60s and the 70s and the 80s when race relations were getting better.
Do you remember when there was this like cultural shifting in authority, defund the police? This
right.
This attempts at these allegedly academic, deconstruction of Western norms and getting rid of respect for traditional authority figures. I mean, just do you know what you would do to the black community if you were to have no police? Who is responsible for this? And also keep in mind, and this is important and critical that you grasp this as well. Social media absolutely focus. They cement the very behaviors you want. If you want tomorrow to do an experiment, if I were to create today this false movement of, let's say, finger or digit amputation, I promise you kids will be cutting off their fingers like that Yakuza, whatever that Japanese organized crime group is. People will do it, even if it's made up. Eating pods, Tide Pods. Remember that one? Kids doing cinnamon challenges. How about kids riding, surfing subways and getting killed? Doing self-harm. Social media are a means of propelling behavior. Destructive, aberrant, violent, horrible behaviors. It's the perfect counterpoint to everything else. We have never. Remember there was a time, sometimes in college, people would try to say, how many of us can climb into a phone booth? Remember a phone booth? Or maybe dance-a-thons. So quaint, so innocent. Today, it's beyond. So remember, this is nothing to do politically. You can't pass legislation. This is a cultural tidal wave. Pay attention to it because it's happening. Our number is 800-848-9222. More coming up on the Lionel Show as we celebrate Mother's Day with me, Lionel, as I said, on 77 WABC.
Overnight with Lionel. WABC 77.
We're talking about dark woke on this beauteous Mother's Day today. Think about what we're talking about. Dark woke. This is a kind of this angry, militant, racially divisive, kind of an offshoot or subdirectory of the woke movement. And it basically, think of Jasmine Crockett. Think of this, post-2020, the cultural revolution fallout after the George Floyd protest. George Floyd, out of all of the people, all of the cases, all of the instances where someone, African American or otherwise, who could have been heralded, lauded, elevated through an apotheosis, this beatification, this Promethean elevation, George Floyd, remember the protest, public and corporate America actively rewarding racial radicalism. Remember the Nancy Pelosi and others? Well, all of a sudden, and I thought this was gratuitous, with kente cloths kneeling down. Remember that? It was horrid. DEI, forced job promotions. Remember this. It was a movement that you couldn't believe. Double standards. Think about this. Many black, not all, but many, some, Jasmine Crockett, use her as an example, face fewer consequences for behavior that would be condemned for others. This is like the institutionalizing the double standard. Speaking of which, institutions, media, and others have created and nurtured kind of like this victimhood narrative that paints any criticism, any complaint as oppression, any anger shown on the other side as justified. There are rules to this. This is nonsense. Jasmine Crockett, pay attention, represents a new style of political theater, political performance art. You know, once it was kind of connected with this kind of a defiant spectacle. This is something that we're seeing today, which is bigger than ever. And also, you're going to see it spread more and more and more. And you're also going to see, again, the role of social media. And if I wanted, let's say I was the prototypical white racist who wanted to defame, blaspheme, and excoriate and execrate African Americans, I would make you, or try to make you think that Jasmine Crockett represents the bulk of black America. And she doesn't. If I wanted to desecrate a public image, I would flood the internet with more fights and melees and riots so that people can say, look at how these black people are always tearing things up and rioting and beating each other up, even though that's the minority of the case. But through social media, it's I love this word, a concatenation, a complete and systematic kind of a mixture of everything. You see how it's happening? And remember, if you want something to increase, just report it online. Even if it's negative. Even if people are harming themselves, show it. Because social media preference, social media exposure will increase examples and exhibitions of the behavior, if that makes any sense. Rusty, you're on 77 WABC with Lionel.
Yeah, Lionel, God bless you. You're the best.
Thank you,
Forget about this Chaz Lopez and Catsimatidis, they ought to put you on where Frank Romano was. 5 days a week, so at least you have the weekend off, because you learn something instead of these BS artists. God bless you.
Rusty, I thank you so much for your time, sir. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. Let's go to, let's go to Russ in White Plains. You're on 77 WABC. Russ. Let me try this. Russ.
Hi, Lionel. Hey, is it Workers Unite? You have nothing to lose but your concatenations. Is that the phrase?
Yes. All across the nation, there's concatenation. I think Barry Maguire said it best. Talk to me, sir.
Trump is the biggest whining victim around about CRT and religion and the schools. I mean, I hope you devote some attention to right wing woke. That also happens. But I want to ask you.
Well, give me an example. Why is CRT? Why is that a problem?
CRT recognizes that we live in an imperfect country, that lies have been told about our history. We're told a false narrative
But
about the United
CRT is a
States.
lie. Critical race theory is a lie.
No, critical race theory, there's truth to
The
it.
1619 project, whatever, it's a lie.
That's an extension of CRT, but Derek Bell and the books he wrote about, divisive racist rhetoric in this country, this is what we have to recognize. But I want to ask you something. What about this ceasefire that we have Trump announced with the Houthis? Did you hear about that?
Well, you know what? It changes so fast. I've got to be very honest with you. Every 5 minutes, it's like the weather in Florida. If you don't like the news now, wait. When it comes to ceasefire, when it comes to Zelensky, when it comes to Putin, when it comes to, I don't know. I literally, and I'm using that term correctly, literally don't listen because I just want to wait. And poor Marco Rubio, he can't keep track of it either. Sandra, you're on 77 WABC.
Oh, good morning. I saw you on Truth Social X, and I learned how to pronounce your name. It's not Lionel, it's Lionel, like vinyl.
Correct.
I love it. I got it right. So I wanted to ask you, AOC, are you concerned about her? I am.
Well, yes. But I'll tell you, she is the Republicans' best gift. A gift.
Oh, why do you think that?
The reason why is very simply this. The reason why is because there's no better way to show the dangers of the Democratic Party than by throwing Jasmine, Bernie Sanders, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Pressley. Keep going. I mean, just keep going. Here's what I want. Most Democrats think of this as a big pie. Not, and we'll get into the Venn diagrams later, but a pie, and a huge chunk of that, I would say 60%. I really believe that. Majority of Democrats, the majority of what real progressives are rational people, white, black, whatever, who want the same thing that we want. They're kind of quiet, but they've been either Democrats historically. They're not Republicans, but they're more rational. They're there. Now, their party has been overrun by this radical focus. What I would do, I told you my dream is I want to have this role in the White House. I want to be the fixer. I don't want to be this kind of, nobody really knows who I am. I want to be like Roger Stone and Donald Segretti and Lee Atwater and a lot of other people, Dick Morris to an extent, who know how the games are played. And the first thing I'm going to do is say, Mr. President, you are not going to know this. So that you can have plausible deniability. But I have talked to a group of people, and we are going to support the candidacy of Jasmine Crockett, AOC, Ilhan Omar. We're going to promote this as being the voice of the Democratic Party. Now, the old party, remember, this is a very complicated group here. The old party, people like Nancy Pelosi, Steny Hoyer, they're fossils. They're going to say, what's going on here? I'm very frightened of Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom is a double threat. I want to neutralize him and more rational Democrats by giving people the impression that the Jasmines and the AOCs and the Bernies are the voice of the Democratic Party. Let me also say something about Gavin Newsom, which is very interesting. Gavin Newsom is going to teach you a story. It's going to teach you about this new mafia, the California Mafia. The California Mafia is divided up, is a member of the D'Alessandro family, who was Nancy Pelosi's family, the Pelosi family, the Brown, Jerry Brown and Pat Brown, the Newsoms, and more importantly, the Gettys, Balthazar Getty. You don't hear about the Gettys too often. That's California. They want to promote Gavin Newsom. Now, Gavin Newsom is the most dangerous because he can be anything you want. He can come out, look normal. He can just lie to your face. Remember when these quislings, these traitors, these rat bastards by the name of Charlie Kirk and others were on his show? Why were they doing that? He was very smart reaching out to conservative mouthpieces and that sort of thing. By the way, there really is no conservative mouthpiece really listening to other than President Trump. But he came across and he's very, very dangerous. That's the guy you got to watch out for because we have midterms coming up. Midterms. So what I want people to understand is that if you continue, if you think about changing horses to midstream, you're going to get a Jasmine Crockett, AOC, powder keg, so to speak, and I want to use them as the fulcrum. I want them to destroy and fractionalize the Democratic Party. I want to destroy them. Now, in the old days, when it came to Republicans, and by the way, I am neither a Republican nor a Democrat. I don't believe in parties, period. I'm a realist. That's me. But anyway, in the old days, Republicans, when I was a kid, they were kind of like, they were like the country club people. They were like, kind of boring. A little bit wacky, Goldwater. And by the way, Goldwater is a moderate compared to if he were around today. In any event, so the Republicans were very smart. They said, we need to change this. Now, this may be a bad example, but in early 70s, the Southern strategy, Nixon and others said, we've got a bunch of these ex-Dixiecrats that we could be plucking away from the Democrats. They're not Democrats because the Democratic Party abandoned them. The Dixiecrats, all right, with Kennedy and others. It's like, so Republicans kind of reached out and in a sense said, listen, I know you've got some concerns, Mr. Thurman and others, but you really belong with us. We'll kind of make sure we'll tamp down these civil rights concerns you worry about. Okay, fine. Later on, Reagan comes along and says, we have the moral majority, the Christian right, bring them into the tent. Now it's growing. Then later on, the Tea Party, constitutionalists, the Second Amendment folks, kind of like the libertarians and others, but the Rand Paul group and the Mises on Hayek, that kind of the Milton Friedman type, all in this huge tent called the Republicans. So in my lifetime, the Republicans became the rational ones because there's something for everybody under the Republican tent. What I want to do is to take the Democratic tent and basically destroy it or limit it in size by telling the world, if you vote Democrat, you're going to get AOC or worse, Jasmine Crockett, even though theoretically they may represent a de minimis slice of the pie. Perception becomes reality. And that's why I hope all of the money goes to promote them. Tell people, make sure they understand that Jasmine Crockett is the Democratic Party. Understand what I'm saying? Good. Because remember, I want to win. I'll play by the rules, but I really don't care how I win. You might call it a lie. I might call it manufactured perception. Our number is 800-848-9222. More coming up on the Lionel Show as we celebrate Mother's Day on 77 WABC.
Oh, girl, baby, girl.
You're listening to one of the most iconic stations in the nation. An American original. Talk Radio 77 WABC and WABCRadio.com. Overnight with Lionel. WABC.
There, of course, as you know, there's the Black Sea Deluge hypothesis. We were just discussing this the other day. 5600 BC. The Mesopotamia River floods. Oh, my God, it's all there before your eyes. Noah's Ark, I love that. Where do the polar bears come from? That's a good one. Where do they come from? But I digress. My friends, let me just say this again in case we run out of time, and we will run out of time. This is a thank you to all of the mothers and the women who represent the mothers of the world on this happy Mother's Day. Remember, this is not just some little titular thing. Did you know something which you probably did not know, and I should have said this? a while back, and I think it's critical that we do this. But there was a reason. Did I mention this about Mother's Day as celebrated around the world? I don't even remember, because I had this wonderful research. I don't call it show prep, ladies and gentlemen, but there's this idea of every culture. Oh, here we go. Did I talk about this? About where Mother's Day comes from? Did I? I'm going to say it again. There is a global celebration of mothers with deep roots today as celebrated. And there's a historical kind of a provenance. Did you know, I don't know if I did this. Did I do this, Bill? The earliest known celebrations of motherhood date back to ancient Greece and Rome, where festivals honored mother goddesses like Rhea, not Rhea Perlman, Rhea and Cybele, or Cybele, Cybele. In early Christianity, Mothering Sunday became a tradition in the UK, observed on the fourth Sunday of Lent, when people returned to their, quote, mother church and often reunited with their mothers. The modern version of Mother's Day in the United States was spearheaded by none other than Anna Jarvis in the early 1900s, following the death of her mother. And what she did was she campaigned to create a national holiday. And 1914, President Woodrow Wilson officially declared the second Sunday in May as Mother's Day. Ironically, this is interesting, Anna Jarvis later disavowed the holiday due to its commercial exploitation. Well, what are you going to do? Today, Mother's Day is celebrated in various forms around the world. In the U.S. and Canada, the second Sunday in May. The UK, Mothering Sunday is in March. Mexico, May 10th, a national celebration. Thailand celebrated on August 12th, the birth of Queen Sirikit. And in Ethiopia, a multi-day festival tied to the end of the rainy season, blending traditional and familial. So that's it. There's no way around it. Let me see if I can get one more call in here. Elisa, you're on 77 WABC.
Lionel, I love you long time.
Thank you, Lisa.
Let me tell you, you are brilliant. Your song, Lionel,
Yep.
Lionel, is in my head all the time. No matter.
You know what? That is precisely the story. The first time I heard that's a song called Nina or Nina Morena from the Gypsy Kings. And the first time I heard it's actually, believe it or not, they're saying Lilo. I did not know that, but it's called a Lilo, so there you have it. It is infectious. As is you for being a part of this. I appreciate this. Let me say this again. I cannot emphasize the criticality, again, of, oh, this is beautiful. This is beautiful. I think we need to kind of reconnect with this, because I think after a while people were saying, we don't really need fathers, we don't really need mothers. We could somehow maybe reconstruct. We've gotten away from this, I don't know what this word is. We've gotten away from the reality of this. It's not that I'm getting wiser. That's not it. People think when you get older, you get wiser. You really don't. You just see things. You kind of learn, and that's not wisdom. That's just learning. In any event, to all the mothers, thank you for what you've done. You gave us life. And Mr. Lee, you give life to this show by virtue of your genius. Your prowess is without peer. We will be back, my friends, next week, same time, 2 to 5. Don't forget, Liz Radabali is next with her blockbuster weekend show. We'll see you then. Have a wonderful day, ladies and gentlemen. Don't forget, the monkey's dead. The show's over. Sue ya.